Hello, welcome to Recapping with Delora
and Ashley.
Please follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at Recapping Podcast.
Also, comment, rate, and subscribe on your favorite podcast platform. We're on all the things.
We would love to hear your ratings of the movies and shows we review.
Email us your audio file to recappingpodcast@gmail.com and we will play it during the show.
Or DM us on Instagram and we will post and read it on air.
Thank you guys so much for listening.
Thank you.
Delora.
Ashley.
Girl,
how are you?
Girl, how's your week going? Anything new?
Girl, a lot of things are going on, but I'm not going to go into great detail, but a lot. How about you?
Man, you know what? I can't say there's a lot new, but this has been a super productive week for me, especially work-wise. So I am in a very good mood today, and I am
fantastic.
Hopefully I don't drink more wine than usual just because I'm in such a good mood.
Celebration.
Try not to get sloppy for our listeners, okay? Delora, I just told you before we hopped on that I wanted to talk about vacations because, girl, I think now that people getting their COVID shots and feeling good and stuff's reopening,
yes,
I'm seeing a lot of travel photos on these internets, and I am feeling some type of way. I am so jealous. I'm seeing
FOMO.
Napa back, girl. I mean, like to the 1,000th degree now.
Yes.
It's like I'm seeing trips to Napa Valley. I'm seeing trips to Hawaii that I really want to go back to.
That. Yes.
Like, Delora, can I go? Like, I'm ready to take a trip. I've been eyeing these all-inclusives to the Bahamas. I'm ready.
Ashley, you're in a coastal state. What are you talking about?
It doesn't matter though. I still want to be on somebody else's beach. I still want to go to somebody else's winery.
Noted.
It's like, yes, I live in Florida. I know that I have the luxury of going to the beach, but it ain't the same as the beaches of Hawaii. Is there any place that you're fantasizing about visiting?
Honestly, surprisingly, today I was thinking about how I cannot wait to go back to France. And I really want to go to Italy as well.
Yes.
And of course, I still haven't been to Hawaii, so I'd love to go there. So how about you?
I mean, again, Bahamas is high on my list right now just because I was watching HGTV a lot while we've been quarantined.
I'm sorry, you did say that. Forgive me for having that brain fart.
No, it's okay. It's just my Bahamas life was a show that I got so into. And I was like, hold on, that's just a hop, skip, and a jump from Florida. Where have I been? You know? So it just looks so enticing. But Italy internationally was on my 2020 list. And then obviously everything happened. So I'm with you, girl. But get your Emily and Paris back on and go on back to France.
And Bahamas is amazing. Just don't have those people braid your hair.
Okay.
But
you know, I'm funny about my hair anyway. Hardly anybody gets to touch these locks. Okay. But I just wanted to chat about that. Guys, feel free to tell us your ideal destination once you're able to get back out there and travel. Cause the itis is something. Okay. We have 2 listener feedback reviews from Apple Podcasts that I wanted to read off that we got in the last couple of weeks. So the first one from Cashy J, Delora. Huge fan of this podcast. Very entertaining, and I love how they give respect to the actors of each show they recap by listing off the cast members. I thoroughly enjoy and sometimes find myself chiming in on the discussion. Keep up the great work. Yay. Thank you so much for that review. Thank you so much for listening. We greatly appreciate you.
Absolutely.
And the second one, the header for this is IMDb meets Rotten Tomatoes meets The Talk. And this is from At Work Al.
Come through, At Work Al.
Delora and Ashley offer such an informed and culturally relevant take on the topics, movies, and shows we are all talking about. Their chemistry and energy make for an entertaining show every time. Listen. We love you guys. Thank you so much for the feedback and keep it coming.
Please do.
We are checking these numbers. We appreciate all the support weekly. We've seen some spikes every now and again too. So please tell your mama, tell your sister, tell your daddy, tell your everybody.
Best friend. Yes.
To listen to Recapping with Delora and Ashley. Okay, we love you guys. Appreciate it.
Absolutely.
So just wanted to knock out those two. And Delora, we have some things to talk about this week, honey.
Yes, ma'am.
So let's go ahead and get into it. So first, some quick headlines. Ya boo, Reggae Jean Page has announced his exit from Bridgerton. Say it, is it so, Delora? The Duke of Hastings will not return for season 2. Netflix and Shondaland announced it last Friday. Are you okay? How you doing?
Girl, the way I gasped. Okay. Girl, I was like, what? Because, okay, logically speaking, okay, yes, the Duke is not featured, prominently in all the following books because, it's each Bridgerton sibling and their love life. But he's the reason why that show is the number one show on Netflix, okay?
Yeah.
And we said this in our recap. Please listen to Bridgerton Part 1, Part 2, available on your favorite podcast platform. He put the other Bridgerton's brothers to shame, as far as I'm concerned.
It's a huge gamble at this point to not have someone who rose to that level of a star be in season 2. I understand that does not fall in line with the books, but when I saw this, I was like, first of all, I don't think I would have announced it. I think I would have let everybody think he was going to be in season 2, and then
You know how many people said they're falling off because he's not there?
So that's what I'm saying.
Yes.
Like, I would have let fans. No, I'm saying I would have let fans discover it for themselves versus me announcing it. Like, I like how the lady whistled down Society Papers, how they are staying in line with that, with the announcement. But no, let people discover he's not in season 2 instead of making it a big thing. Because then you're guaranteed.
The I don't even know how many O's I put in my
A lot.
But I mean, the last thing I was going to say, apparently book 2 of this Bridgerton series is one of the most beloved romance books ever. Yes.
With Anthony?
Yes.
Oh,
so,
okay.
Obviously, this show has a strong following because of the readers of the books and all that. So we'll see. I mean, I have faith in the showrunner, Chris. He's going to write a good show. I hope the chemistry's there.
Yeah. I mean, I have no doubt the show will continue to be good.
I hope to like Anthony. I mean, I just hope to like him because he did nothing for me.
No, he did nothing for me either. Again, it's a gamble. So we're going to see if it pays off. So our second quick headline, Tiger crash cause. Last week, Delora mentioned the fact that due to privacy laws, they had determined the cause but couldn't release it. Well, Tiger waived his right to privacy, authorized release of the report. Speed was the cause, Delora. He was driving approximately 87 in a 45 mile per hour zone. And It seemed like he inadvertently had hit the accelerator instead of the brake when he hit something and started to crash. So, it's definitely scary. And I know they were saying, he's fortunate he even survived this. I mean,
girl. But his career is still on the line over the type of injuries he has.
For sure. The fact that, his health is undecided, unclear at this point. We don't really have any updates, but I keep hearing he's in good spirits. He's trying to do what he can do. And again, I'm happy that he walked away with his life because it does seem like it could have been a very, very serious situation based on, what we've heard. So that was our second headline. And our final quick headline, girl, if you've rocked with us for a little bit, we talked about Larsa Pippen and Malik Beasley a little bit ago. And the fact that this relationship raised many eyebrows when it was first reported because he was married at the time to a social influencer. And
is her divorce to Scotty even official though?
They call her his estranged wife. So I don't know what the status of their divorce proceedings are.
They've been doing their own thing for a while.
They have. It's not, the scandal is really not on her side in terms of her relationship with Scotty. It was for sure on his side.
It's to highlight how messy she actually is.
I mean, in totality, the situation was hella messy because this man had a whole wife, has a 2-year-old
Who was
son.
blindsided.
Yeah, has a 2-year-old son. She subsequently filed for divorce. But Delora, it's only been 4 months that they were together. Do you think it was worth it on either side of the coin?
Absolutely not.
I would agree. That's all I have to say on no shenanigans. Let's move into our actual hot topics of the week, girl, starting with the SAG Awards. It aired Sunday as a 1-hour pre-taped virtual ceremony on TBS and TNT. I have to be honest with our listener. It was pre-taped because they did a lot of editing. They left a lot, they said, on the cutting room floor, and they liked it this way. They said usually our award show is the shortest anyway, and this year's going to be real short. But I have to be honest with you and our listeners. I didn't watch it, but I have subsequently gone back and heard the winners and looked at some fashion. So
I did not either, actually, because I don't have cable.
Right.
I'm a millennial in
TBS
that way.
and TNT, right? I'm sure many of you guys can relate. I'm forced to have cable. That's another story. So let's talk about these winners. This is the first time likely in SAG history that the 4 top individual film honors were awarded to people of color.
All deserved, though.
Absolutely. Best Motion Picture Ensemble was The Trial of Chicago 7. Best Male Actor in a Leading Role Motion Picture, the Chadwick Boseman for Ma Rainey's Black Bottom, of course. Best Female Actor in a Leading Role Motion Picture, Viola Davis for Ma Rainey's Black Bottom.
So happy.
The second Black woman to win this category, Halle Berry, was the other.
Of course.
Best Ensemble in a Drama Series, The Crown. Best Male Actor in a Drama Series, Jason Bateman for Ozark.
I was rooting for you, Ray J.
Best Female Actor.
Jean.
Best Female Actor in a Drama Series, Gillian Anderson, The Crown.
Deserved.
Best Female Actor in a Supporting Role Motion Picture, Yoo Jung-yoon Minari. Best Male Actor in a Supporting Role Motion Picture, Daniel Kaluuya, Judas and the Black Messiah. Best Ensemble in a Comedy Series, Schitt's Creek.
Yes.
Best Female Actor in a Comedy Series, Catherine O'Hara, Schitt's Creek.
Love.
Best Male Actor in a Comedy Series, Jason Sudeikis, Ted Lasso. I should go back just to see his acceptance speech. I just need to see if he did better. I just need to know. Best Female Actor in a Limited Series or TV Movie, Anya Taylor-Joy, The Queen's Gambit. Guys, go back and listen to our Part 1 and Part 2 recaps of The Queen's Gambit if you have not.
Yes.
Best Male Actor in a Limited Series or TV Movie, Mark Ruffalo. I know this much is true. I still haven't watched that, but
same.
I've heard good things.
I don't know if it's way on down the list.
Sorry, Mark. Love you. Best action performance by a stunt ensemble in a TV series, The Mandalorian. Sorry, Cobra Kai.
Yes.
Best action performance by a stunt ensemble in a motion picture, Wonder Woman, 1984. So those are just rounding out the list of the winners. Delora, please let me know what your fashion moment of the night was. I have to be honest again. I went to Vogue because there were no red carpet pictures that I could find, but I have my tops. Who were yours?
Ashley, I'm going to give it up for the boys. The men
giving it to the boys
showed up and showed out. Aldous Hodge in that print suit. Granted, was I in love with the suit entirely? No, but he looked amazing when he took the jacket off. I don't know if you saw that.
No, I liked the jacket itself. I was like, okay, I'm feeling it.
Our boy, Dan Levy.
Always.
I mean, it's just Reggae Jean. They just came with it. Even Leslie Odom Jr., even though I didn't love all the colors in his suit, I just appreciate him willing to take a chance. You know, men don't take these type of chances, and the dudes were showing up and showing out, and I appreciated that greatly. What about you, Ashley?
I wanted to love his suit, by the way.
I did.
I appreciated it like you did, or it's like I appreciate the effort more than the look itself.
Absolutely.
But Leslie, you did your thing. My top, Reggae Jean Page is definitely my best dressed man of the night. I said all black everything. You're killing me. You're killing me. You look so good. Jesus. And then on the lady side, though, Journey Smollett came and that Zuhair Murad beautiful flowing pink dress.
She gave me the neckline and the leg.
Oh my God. She looked beautiful, breathtakingly beautiful. That's one of my favorite looks I've ever seen on her. So, period, poo. So so those are my fashion highlights.
And Anna Joy, you can't forget her.
She looks regal as always.
As always.
There were multiple dresses that I really loved, but I can love a dress and not love the way that it looks on the person.
Yes.
So I appreciated that. To me, this was a higher level of fashion, the way we have had at some of the other award shows we've talked about, but those were my favorite overall. Like, you body.
And the last thing I'm going to say to that is I was watching, I believe it was Daily Pop, and someone made a point that the celebrities seem more comfortable during these shoots, you know, dressing up for award season this year because they're at home.
Yeah.
They don't have to worry about, you know, the pressure of walking that red carpet and finding the perfect pose. When you're at home, you find your perfect pose and you post it.
Absolutely. I mean, you had Kerry Washington in a pool.
In a pool. Yes. Exactly.
Y'all are setting I mean, this is Hollywood and y'all get to have probably some amazing photographer come over and capture you in your best light and best angles. I mean, yes, I totally would get that. But we have to move on from the fun stuff to a couple of not so fun hot topics. First, prayers up for sure to DMX, who suffered a heart attack as a result of a drug overdose on Friday. For those of you who are not familiar, DMX is a rapper, also an actor, been in the game for quite a long time. He was rushed to the hospital in New York and remains there in a coma and on life support with, unfortunately, little brain function.
Yeah.
Reports indicate he has not regained any of his brain functionality after some tests that were performed yesterday. But there has been massive support shown for him. Hundreds of people, including his kids and his fiance, were outside of the hospital on Monday night for a prayer vigil. Obviously, limited number who can actually go in and visit him due to COVID restrictions. I got a reminder when I was looking this stuff up that, you know, he did a versus. We last saw him back in July of last year when he faced off with Snoop in a versus battle. Yeah.
I didn't even see that one.
Yeah. So, you know, definitely I remember it's going to be one of those that I remember kind of where I was and when I heard about it. How are you feeling? What are your thoughts on it? Were you a DMX fan? Are you a DMX fan?
Of course. I'm not as heavy as a lot of people. Like in that versus, I probably would have been more Snoop than DMX just based off of the catalog that I know personally. But I remember the first time I saw DMX's video for what's his first hit? His first hit.
I can't remember.
Y'all gonna make me lose my. Is that him?
Yes, that's definitely him. I don't know if that was his first hit because I'm terrible with song names. I'm gonna be totally honest. I love artists and I will never remember their song names. So I'm the wrong one to ask.
Well, that's one of the first music videos where I remember distinctly that voice, his face.
Yes.
And I was like in middle school or something crazy, but it was. Of course, I love DMX, and he's a prayer warrior. And so it's just like, this is just so sad. So sad.
For sure. And I think, you know, I knew that he had openly battled substance abuse for a very long time and addiction. But I think it still always hurts when you have these people in Hollywood who are successful, who are beloved, and you wonder what type of help they really get behind the scenes because, you know, not to say that people are not rooting for them to get better, but that's some people's moneymaker. You know what I mean? I just don't know if the care and concern. They have a lot of yes
people.
Yeah.
So they don't have the accountability that's needed.
It's just sometimes I don't know if there's the care and concern there when you reach a certain level of celebrity, and we've seen so many of our most beloved icons die due to drug use, and so it just, you know, it's just really sad. I'm definitely praying for him and his family and hoping that somehow he can pull
the
through.
last headline I saw right before this podcast is they're talking about his family's going to have to make a hard decision.
Yeah. because that was what they did the test for. They wanted to do the test just to see where he stood and then would have to decide from there. So again, we're keeping him and his family in our prayers. So talking about his hits, the radio stations, I keep hearing them playing a lot. And so I was just singing the one he did with Cisco. There was Brenda, Letitia, Linda, Felicia, Dawn, LaShawn, Inez, and Alicia. Like, that is probably one of the most memorable for me just because of them names. I always sing that song, but he had so many that I love. The song with Aaliyah from the Romeo Must Die soundtrack. Yes. I mean, I'm definitely a fan of DMX. I've always liked his rap style, but other than that, he's just a human being. And I hope that for his sake, he's able to pull through.
Absolutely.
So our last hot topic, Delora, we have not talked about this, but I think it's about time. T.I. and Tiny, girl.
Do we have to?
We do. I got to get your thoughts. The world needs to know. So T.I. and Tiny are potentially facing a criminal investigation. The couple has been accused of engaging in a series of criminal acts, including drugging, rape, and kidnapping. The allegations were first brought to light after a former friend of the couple, Sabrina Peterson, began sharing stories of alleged victims on her Instagram account in January of 2021. Since then, dozens of women have come forward with similar stories of abuse. It's a hot topic this week, especially because 3 more women have come forward with accusations in the past week, now totaling 14. None of the accusers, though, have shared their names. MTV has suspended production on their series T.I. and Tiny, Friends and Family Hustle, and T.I. and Tiny themselves have vehemently denied all allegations. So, Delora, give me your thoughts.
It's very unfortunate. Speaking of favorite rappers, T.I. was mine growing up. I had a crush on the small man. I say that because I'm pretty tall. I hope those women get the justice they're looking for. Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if there was some crazy stuff going on. You know what I mean? And they took it too far. Honestly, if you really want to keep it 100, the way T.I. was overbearing to his daughter and her virginity kind of is a signal for me of like how the overreach was too much.
Yeah.
And to me, a potential flag. So what about you?
I have definitely had this story in the background in terms of all the things that, are out there. But now that we're reaching such a level of accusers, it's hard to ignore. And not that I was ignoring it, but I'm saying it's becoming more, it's like where there's smoke, there's fire. Yeah. It's harder and harder to be like, oh, that's probably just a rumor. You know what I mean? And
I understand that feeling too, because for me, it's like, well, we'll see if this dies down or not. Right?
Yeah. To see if it needs my attention. And I cannot treat, because to your point, I was also a big fan of T.I. I mean, he was popping for during the time of like being in high school, and he definitely has a special place for me in that way. But he's still a human being. Him and Tiny are still human beings, and I don't know these people, so I can't hold them to any other standard than I hold anybody else. And as you know, personally, when I talk about these sorts of cases, I'm a believer in the victims. I want to hear the accusers out. I need these facts to be discussed and for things to be investigated before I would feel, that things are resolved. So it's not going to be just, dismiss that because those are rumors. Well, at this point, if you have 14 women coming out and accusing you of all these types of allegations, then I'm going to need a criminal investigation. So that's where I'm at. Yeah,
exactly.
That's where I'm at. And unfortunately, based on some of the stories that I've read today preparing, they're saying that Tiny was more of the ringleader than T.I., which would be very hurtful for me personally.
Yes.
So again,
like almost like a madame role, kind of, right?
Well, I mean, even going back to the Jeffrey Epstein case and situation, and
he used his girlfriend.
Yeah, it's just it's a different level when a woman does things to you.
It's very manipulative, right?
It's
They
manipulative.
use the women to lure the girls or make them quote unquote feel safe, right?
Yeah, it's manipulative, and it's also really tragic to think that
Yes.
another woman would put you in that situation.
Yes.
But again, that's where I'm at with it, just because now we've reached a fever pitch of this is no longer something where it's like, oh, this may just be a he said, she said. Because I remember that initial post by Sabrina. I remember that initial dust up, and it doesn't seem like this case is going anywhere. So that's what I got, Delora. And if you have nothing else, honey, those are our headlines and hot topics of the day.
Thank you, Ashley. It is now time for the recap. We are recapping this week Tina, the documentary. It is an HBO music / documentary. It premiered March 27th, 2021. It is an hour and 58 minutes. So here's the summary of the documentary. With a wealth of never before seen footage, audio tapes, personal photos, and new interviews, including with the singer herself, Tina presents an unvarnished and dynamic account of the life and career of music icon Tina Turner. Everything changed when Tina began telling her story, a story of trauma and survival that gave way to a rebirth as the record-breaking queen of rock and roll. But behind closed doors, the singer struggled with the survivor narrative that meant her past was never fully behind her. Directed by Dan Lindsay and TJ Martin, the documentary charts Tina's early fame, the private and public, personal and professional struggles, and her return to the world stage as a global phenomenon in the 80s. All right, Ashley. So I'm just going to highlight the director and the producers and a few notable commentators in the documentary here.
Okay.
So as I mentioned, Dan Lindsay and TJ Martin are directors, and the producers are Simon Chin, Jonathan Chin. Both of them also did the Whitney documentary that came out a couple of years ago.
Okay. It's
and
good to know.
Diana Becker. And then the production company is Lightbox. And as I mentioned in the summary, Tina Turner herself is featured in interviews, as well as Angela Bassett, Oprah Winfrey, Kirk Lauder, who's her autobiographer for I, Tina that came out in the 80s. Katori Hill, she is the writer and creator of the Tina Turner musical, Broadway musical. And she's also the creator and writer on P Valley, which is, I know, very popular. That comes on Stars. And they also interview her husband, Erwin Bach. All right, Ashley, this film is getting a lot of love. So Rotten Tomatoes has 92% from critics,
Yes,
94% from audience, and Google users give it 94%.
wow.
What's your grade, Ashley, on this documentary?
And this grade is absolutely an A. I loved this so much. I had to write my thoughts down. I said,
Yes.
I said, to give this living legend her flowers while she can still smell them and potentially introduce her to a new generation was beyond satisfying for me. It was a beautiful reminder, even for me, of my appreciation of her artistry.
Absolutely.
A lot of the info, especially about her early years, were brand new for me. And I loved knowing more about her. I love the way that they set this up in 5 acts. I love that it was almost a love letter from her husband and from all of her fans, just to say, we respect you, we appreciate you, and we will always love you. And for that, this got an A for me.
Fantastic. Well, Ashley, this film gets an A for me as well.
Whoop,
I
whoop.
love me some Tina Turner. So random note about myself. I attended Bowling Green State University, which is surprisingly one of the top pop culture colleges in the country. They have a pop culture major.
Wow.
And so guess who took electives? I did. And I remember being in college writing reports on boy bands and Tina Turner.
Wow.
So I wrote a whole paper about it. Actually, this is how far back I love Tina, right? My husband, who was just my friend because we were both RAs together, was there when I was writing my report on Ike and Tina Turner. Dave's like, I remember you writing that paper. Like, oh my God.
Well, shout out to BGSU for not only helping with your love of Tina, but for your love of your husband as well.
Oh, yeah, exactly. We're Falcon Flames. That's what they call people who fell in love in college. So in any case, obviously grew up on the film which was, you know, my first introduction to her life, obviously. But then, I mean, honestly, all of the songs immediately came rushing in from You're Simply the Best.
Absolutely. Which is my favorite. Simply the Best is my favorite.
I love her old stuff. River Deep, Mountain High. Like, so anyway.
I just feel like I try not to dwell on the Ike and Tina songs because I feel like she wouldn't want me to, I guess. I don't know how else to put that.
I feel you.
Yeah.
But again, in my pop culture class, I learned about Phil Spector and his wall of sound, which was big for that time. So
yeah, and didn't get the love it deserved, right?
It did not, no. Yeah. So part 1 and part 2, Ike and Tina and family. All right, Ashley. Part of the reason why I love this documentary so much is because you really got some amazing, never before seen type of pictures and videos. I was so impressed with that.
Yes.
So the film starts off talking about her 1981 People magazine article where she first documented her story with Ike. It was so unlike me, my life. It was not a good life. Like the way she was so detached from her life in that way was just very heartbreaking. And go ahead.
Well, I was just thinking, I have no idea what it's like to have had to deal with domestic abuse and then move forward with your life. One would think she may have had to do that as not only a defense mechanism, but also maybe she reached a point where she was like, I don't know how I ever put up with that shit. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Like, who was I?
Yeah, who was that person?
Yes.
Can I also say, too, when this started, my first thought was the legs. Okay?
It's always the legs, Ashley.
God, Tina.
When I tell you, it is body, yaddy, yaddy all the
whole time. Me and my mom looked up what she said her workout routine was because I was like, ma'am, your body stayed tight and right.
Well, you know, and it's one thing to, obviously, Tina Turner has always been there, you know, in the stratosphere all of our lives, right? But being able to be at the age we are now and to see her life and put things in perspective,
yes,
also blows my mind as well, because I'm like, that's a 40-year-old woman on that cover with those legs
looking amazing. And even just the energy when we get to some of her performances, she kept that energy. I mean, again, true entertainer.
Exactly.
She was amazing.
And so she tells her story, and they also give you more perspective that People magazine was that publication, which I knew. I think People magazine started losing their grip probably more recently, like most print publications when it comes to social media. But 30
million readers back in the day,
girl.
Jesus.
Exactly.
But I also like how they translated it to something that tangible, that a younger person watching it, like, this is the equivalent of going viral, you know?
That's why, you know, People's Most Beautiful or Sexiest Man Alive was so important, because that was it. That was the say, and everyone believed it, you know, from there on. So, but so we get started with the introduction of Ike and Tina. So Tina talked about how Ike's band, the Kings of Rhythm, was the first band that she ever saw. She said that the relationship was very brotherly, sisterly, because she was much younger than Ike at the time. And her real name is Anna Mae Bullock. She was so impressed by the band that she wanted to sing, and they didn't give her the time of day until she picked up the microphone herself. So her initiative got her heard. And one of the things that I also thought was interesting was that Ike's a music legend, and I, it's hard to say these things because of the type of person he was, especially towards her, but
right.
To understand that he was part of the first rock and roll song, 1951's Rocket 88. Yeah, that was fascinating.
Yeah, and even the fact that he was cool with B.B. King, talking about his mother practically raised B.B. King. I'm like, wait, what?
Exactly. But because, this happened a lot during this time early in the music industry. We kind of talked about this in Ma Rainey, how people like to take songs and go and not give proper credit. Ike never got his due until he paired up with Tina. So their first big hit was A Fool in Love, 1960. They talked about how because Tina was so young, she didn't really have much ambition. And essentially, Ike exploited that. And because of his past hurt, he had this weird grip on her. So much so that he threw this name on her, Tina Turner.
Completely without her permission or knowledge.
Or anything, like you mentioned, no knowledge. And I was really fascinated by this part, Ashley, when they talked about the origin of her name and how it's based off of Sheena, Queen of the Jungle.
Yeah.
Honestly, I don't know. Obviously, I'm looking at the old video of that show in 2021 eyes, but it's just like really this perfectly quiet blonde white woman in the jungle swinging on trees.
I mean, it was an era, clearly, because even when Tina talked about some of the early influences on her in terms of beauty and fashion and all these things, it was white women. So it just showed you the lack of diversity, obviously, that was available for Black people to look at and say, in pop culture and say, oh, that could be me. It was more so just the fantasy of like, oh, well, I love that. I hope I aspire to that at some point in time. But yeah, it was definitely like, that's where you got that name? Okay, I guess.
Right. So Sheena and Tina sounds like Sheena, so they went with it.
But the one thing I agree with is I do like the double letter name. So Tina Turner, I do like that.
The alliteration of it all.
Yes, I do like that.
So they really go into the abuse, unfortunately, right away. And she talked about how he would just beat her and then have sex with her shortly after. And so to me, while I was hearing this, I immediately thought, oh my goodness, this is spousal rape,
For sure.
Because unfortunately, a trigger warning, I'm so sorry. I should have said that before, but we found that rape is more so about dominance and not about any type of the sex itself. And I'm like, I don't even want to imagine the mind fuckery of all that. You know what I mean? And having to be available for him.
She was pregnant when it first started. I mean, that's another level. So you don't care for her and you have no care for the life of your unborn child. And then he would also make her go out and perform. So not only are you beating her, spousally raping her, you're also forcing her out on stage and then claiming that it's her fault that you're beating her. So then you're gaslighting her. Like, it just had to have been, I think I put in my notes that it had to have been so scary to see that switch, because she talked about how early on it was that familial love. It was like somebody that you could trust, nothing would ever happen. So to see that switch once you guys get married and to see that ugliness and to have him be the one who abuses you, it had to be horrific. You know what I mean?
Horrific.
Because it's somebody that you initially had complete trust and faith in.
Yes. Someone you looked up to. She was
idolized him.
Exactly.
Idolized him.
Exactly. Girl, and he also ran a very tight ship. I put nonstop because they played 4 shows a night and they were all packed. And so much so, if any of his musicians, blew a note, they had to pay $10. And in the late 50s, 60s, $10 was a lot of money.
Oh, absolutely. And then they would say he would make her continue to sing like on the bus in between gigs. Like, ma'am.
She didn't even know what song was popping up next. To me, that was insane. But she's like, in a way, it was training. And sometimes I struggle with these type of stories because I immediately think of Joe Jackson, right? like he also was known to run a very tight ship, and it's like these domineering men, right?
Yeah, which makes me think now of that Atlanta episode, the weird, creepy Atlanta episode.
How?
Because I just feel like he was supposed to be the example of what those type of dominant male figures does to somebody. Like, it's just it really creeps me out so much. Oh my God. Anyway.
So they were getting a lot of work. They were doing a lot of shows. But one of the things that I thought was interesting was that, Ike was the one creating the songs and managing them and things like that. But he had a sound to him, right? Yeah. And they felt like Tina was such a talent that she was bigger than him. And they were saying that he might have kind of felt that too. And that brings us to 1966, where she worked with Phil Spector on River Deep Mountain High. Phil had to pay Ike to leave the studio so he can work with her. Mind you, he was the, Timbaland of his day.
Yeah, he was the top pop producer, as Kurt Loder says in his interview.
Exactly. And as you mentioned, Ashley, it did not do anything in the United States. I think it has more weight now, but in terms of hitting the billboards in 1966, it didn't do it.
One could say that was just purely due to racism, though, to a certain extent, because the way they said it, like you can't, Black artists weren't able to be a lot of different genres or to be put in a lot of different genres and find success. So because it didn't fit in the mold of R&B, then it couldn't go number one on the R&B charts. You know what I mean? Didn't mean the song was bad. It means that they didn't know how to market it to make it successful.
And that was one of the things that I did appreciate, that interview that Ike was talking about that exact same thing. I thought that was fascinating. All right. So part 2, the family. So during all this hard working, they have 4 boys at home, Ashley.
Yeah.
So 2 of them, Ike and Michael, were Ike's kids with his first wife, Lorraine. Craig, who is Tina's son with a saxophonist, and then Ronnie, which is the son that they had together, and they all lived in LA together, and Tina was their mother. I wonder what the Lorraine story was. I didn't get a chance to get any information on that, but it's like those boys they called Tina their mom, what I mean?
I didn't dig into that either, but I thought that was interesting. And also Craig being adopted by Ike, like, so his dad didn't want to raise him either. You know what I mean? They didn't really elaborate on why the family came to be how it was, but I'll say the neglect of the kids, even by Ike and Tina, unfortunately, really hurt me. Yes,
because I was going to get to that. 8 months on the road, 3 months back. That's no time.
Yeah.
She missed a lot.
Yeah.
But then at the same time, they're working their butts off to keep the house and to get food on the table. So,
and at the end of the day, the way we are receiving info, Tina had no choice, right? It was not up to her.
Yes. And one of the things that was so fascinating, and I think we kind of knew this, but she talked about how she didn't have any friends and that she was on an allowance. Ashley, I was like, can you believe working your butt off and just only being on an allowance?
She is Tina freaking Turner. And it's also her oldest son, Craig, committed suicide in 2018. So I think that's what makes this section a little bit more palpable, because the weight of it is different.
Yep.
So to hear about these traumatic events that happened when they were children and stuff just makes you wonder how much of that played into later things that happened in his life. But definitely from Tina's perspective, heartbreaking.
Yeah. And so to your point, an old interview where Craig is talking about seeing some of the encounters with Ike and Tina, and Ike threw hot coffee on her.
3rd-degree burns.
Her. And then, the fact that he heard all the beating on the other side of the door, and all his mom could say, it's okay, baby, it's okay. Ugh. And then he only apologized for the burns, but not actually throwing the coffee. Like, again,
Too
the
much.
mind fuck of it all. It's like
too much to bear.
Hugh Grant's character in The Undoing, like, they're insane.
Go back and catch that recap if y'all have not listened to it. His definitely takes a special type of person somehow to, and I find it both understandable and also infuriating that we get this perspective that, oh, but he had his own demons, he had his own flaws. But that does not justify the cruelty and torture that you put Tina through. I understand that she has to find her forgiveness, but I was pissed
girl,
watching this.
It was unnerving. So one of the questions that was posed in this documentary was, why did she stay? And they go further back into her childhood. Ashley, her parents were sharecroppers in Nutbush, Tennessee, and they had an abusive relationship.
Yeah.
And one day her mom left, and then her dad, and they stayed with a cousin, and her parents never came back. They had no support.
That was mind-blowing. That is something I had no knowledge of prior to watching this. That was mind-blowing.
And so it makes so much sense that, again, she met Ike when she was like in her teens, still in high
17.
school. She talked about how when she finally was working with him, she would dress like a woman at night and then wear her schoolgirl clothes in the day. So it makes sense that she probably gravitated towards this man and puts too much trust in him, because he was in some ways taking care of her, right? But
yeah, he was like
put up with his bullshit.
Yeah. Like, if you didn't feel loved by your parents, which we've talked about this in previous podcasts, your parents are the foundation of your life that leave a lasting impact on you forever.
Yes, absolutely. And it got so bad, Ashley, that she attempted to kill herself. She said that she had a bottle of sleeping pills, and one day she decided to take them, and she still showed up to rehearsal, and then she lost consciousness, and then they were able to regain her. But that interview, that clip of Ike talking about why did she do it was disgusting, Ashley.
I think I could have hated him less if he'd ever admitted or expressed remorse for what he did. What he did. He tried to blame her suicide on his womanizing and her essentially trying to please him, not on the fact that you were beating her ass on the regular.
Exactly.
What are you talking about?
Girl, but I'm so happy that she found religion, she found her confidence, and she found her voice. After that suicide attempt, she was introduced to Buddhism. Mm-hmm. And through chanting, she was able to mentally liberate herself to where she was vibing on a different frequency. Okay, Ashley?
Yeah. She said, I stopped caring what Ike thought about me. I stopped caring about any of that. I was receiving. Okay. I was receiving what the universe had to offer me.
That was so important. And I love when she talked about finding her confidence. They had a video doing a performance, and she was like, respect is all I want. And especially women, I was like, she had her ovaries on display.
She did, because she said men always get what they want, don't they? They're out there in those streets. It makes us women think we want to be out there in them streets too. Must be something good out there.
Oh,
I loved it. I loved it.
I loved it.
And to go back to your question real quick about why she stayed, I also think loyalty played such a big role in it, because she talked about how she made Ike a promise that she wouldn't leave him. And back then a promise was a promise. And I think that mentality harmed her so much. I love loyalty. I think that is a staple of a great human being.
There's
but in this case,
people in the world,
absolutely. But in this case, when this man is doing you such harm, that's when I give you your grace, baby. You go ahead and leave.
Exactly. You have to reserve loyalty to people who deserve it.
Absolutely.
So Ashley, she got sick and tired of being sick and tired. So this epic scene when she leaves Ike is also featured in the fantastic movie What Love Got to Do with It. In the car on the way to the airport, he offered her melted chocolate and all she said was and he hit her.
Yep. Showed the level that they had gotten to where he just hauled off for absolutely no reason. I mean, you had people say that as well, that, and it was the drug use, right? That he was using drugs heavily at the time, all of that. But yeah, I mean, it had definitely reached a point where it seemed like he would find any reason to be physically abusive towards her. And I just don't know. I don't want to speculate. I don't know what would have happened to Tina if she hadn't have found the strength to leave, Girl. And I don't want to even really think about it.
No, me either. But she had time that day. And she fought back, and he didn't even know what to do with it.
The music, the score that was chosen for that scene, I felt liberated. I felt it.
Absolutely. Again, this documentary is definitely a beautiful film. She mentioned that she went to the Ramada Inn. She only had a mobile card and 36 cents to her, and she had a promise to the manager and said, hey, if you give me this room, I promise to pay you back. And she said the next day was the 4th of July. I thought that was powerful.
Absolutely. Independence Day is the day that she got her freedom. Woof.
No money, no car, no house.
I'm going to start calling Independence Day Tina Turner Day.
Amen. That's better.
Much.
We only recognize Juneteenth at this point.
Yep.
But she was able to keep her name. So now that takes us to part 3, the comeback. Ashley, in that divorce, as I mentioned, she had nothing but her name and all the bills, apparently.
Right.
Because she was responsible for taking care of these kids. So she was working cabaret shows in Las Vegas. So you have a 40-something-year-old performer, doing any job that she can, including TV, like Hollywood Squares or the variety shows with Cher. First of all, can we talk about the epicness of just seeing Cher and Tina Turner on the same stage wearing their skimpy clothes? I'm sorry, wearing their Bob Mackie clothes, okay? Like, legendary, okay? Legendary.
I just could not imagine what it would have been like to see Tina Turner in Vegas back in the day,
I know.
Wow.
And she was doing a bunch of covers, but one thing that I loved about this part, Ashley, this woman had a dream, and her dream was clear. So she met up with her manager, Roger Davies, and his first question to her was, what do you want? I want to take a moment really quick and talk about how it is imperative, if you want anything in life, to know exactly what it is you want. And I say that because I have been in situations where I'm like, but I don't know what I want. But it's like, when you know what you want and you know it with a level of clarity like she did, she said, I want to be the first Black rock and roll singer to pack football stadiums.
Yes.
When we talk about how specific this is, it is so necessary to have specifics, okay? And I bring this up because this is going to be valid later on. I just appreciate how she was just sure of herself what she wanted. Mm-hmm. And again, at that point, she was considered washed up, and she had the shadow of Ike haunting her everywhere she went.
Delora, can you imagine being asked repeatedly about your abuser publicly?
Girl.
That hurt me just watching.
Every time.
I felt like I'm getting PTSD from every single interview. Where's Ike? How's Ike? Da-da-da-da Ike. Da-da-da Ike. If y'all only knew.
So rude and uncomfortable. But again,
they didn't know.
These places ask the same questions all the time.
And they didn't know at that point yet. They didn't know. So.
And they didn't. Well, her and her manager managed to get her band together. They were unclear on the image at the point because, again, she was doing cabaret shows. So she was lingering on to how people knew her in the Ike and Turner review. So she changed her hair. She got rid of the Bob Mackie clothes. She went for the short dress. The thing that had me cracking up was talking about her band wearing black karate suits.
I know. And they all get to wear different colored belts. Like, okay. But she, like, to your point earlier, she had such a specific vision, and she was like, oh, it looked a little raggedy, but rock and roll is a little raggedy. You know what
Exactly. And girl, her manager was able to get her a deal, but of course the record company had new management.
Ooh, child.
Girl, I have what in capital letters with exclamation points and question marks following. Okay, so the guy who signed her was really upset because he didn't want the new management to drop her because he believed in her. And they talk about how one of the execs said the following: "You're the one who signed the old nigger douchebag." And the fact that the guy was like, yeah, I did, and I'm really happy about it, that's the part where I was also feeling some kind of way too. It's like, where's the real allyship here? I know he eventually went on his knees and had to stare down and beg to keep her on the record label, but how about we not refer to her as an old nigger douchebag?
It makes me wish that she had more options at the time, because I don't feel like they deserve, if that's the case, if you're racist and you're blatantly racist and you're saying things like this, you didn't deserve Tina Turner at Capitol Records.
Period.
Fuck y'all.
Period. Like, it just makes me so upset because, you know, all of this type of behavior is coming to light today, but this has been going on for a very long time.
Absolutely. And this was, again, blatantly said to an employee at the time about this artist. So the fact that Tina goes on to become, as we know her, the Tina Turner, as a solo artist, y'all didn't deserve her based off of this conversation. And it really makes me glad that artists today have much more license and flexibility to do what they need to do and to go off and do their own thing.
Hopefully.
Well, to the extent of the fact that technology is improving the chances that they can do things outside of the big record label mentality that was always your only option before.
The big machine.
Exactly.
Okay. Yeah. Oh, but they kept her and they said they will do absolutely nothing for her. And we've heard about deals like this in the past where they'll sign people on, but they don't support them in marketing or anything, frankly. It's kind of like you're on your own. And so Tina and her manager got to work and they felt like England was where they needed to be for her to thrive because, you know, at that point in the early 80s, hip hop was taken. I mean, rock was pretty strong, don't get me wrong, but not her type of rock was thriving. So they went to Europe because Europe loves Tina. So she felt like she was able to make this move because her kids were in their 20s. She didn't have any friends in America because if she did, they were all tied to her ex, Ike.
Right.
So then begins the era of What's Love Got to Do with It in 1984. One of the things that I loved about this was that she hated the song originally.
Right.
And I also love the fact that it was a cover, and I had no idea because like the man who wrote the song, this is Tina Turner's song.
Absolutely. That's like most people do not know that I Will Always Love You is a cover for Whitney Houston because
Dolly Parton wrote that song.
It is Whitney Houston's song to everyone besides Dolly, who's getting them checks and is like, thank you, boo.
Wait, she gives Whitney credit all the time. And honestly, Dolly has always been a, songwriter, but I think the real good checks started coming in after that song.
No, absolutely.
Yes.
Everybody forgets the Bodyguard soundtrack broke records at the time in terms of a soundtrack of a film. I mean, it was
still legendary.
Undeniable. So yeah, legendary. Absolutely. Had no idea that was a cover. When I heard the original, I was like, oh, that's so 80s pop, right? I get why it didn't move you.
Exactly.
But I'm glad, I mean, that's your song, girl. So
and I have in my notes at this section, sweet, sweet success.
Mm-hmm.
What's love got to do with it? Oh, girl, 20 million sold. It won record of the year at the Grammys. She was on the cover of Rolling Stone. They toured the world, 230 shows in 18 months, and they had the audience of 15 to 60 years old of age.
Yeah.
Like, it is just, this was so phenomenal. And it took her 2 weeks to record it. The album itself is called Private Dancer, of course.
That cover? Yes.
Girl, everything. everything.
But don't call it a comeback, y'all, because she said in her mind it was her debut.
It was. And I appreciate her saying that because I can see that. This was her first time being solo by herself.
This was her coming out. The only thing that makes me upset is she got cut off because had she been able to do these things younger, her career would have been longer. That is my only issue. But I get it. It is destiny. It is what it is. It's life. She's not upset about it, so I'm gonna let it go.
Yeah, that's true. And she had to be ready for that. She had to have that confidence in herself and in her voice. And she wasn't there yet. But honestly, by her having the success in her 40s is so much sweeter because it proves that you don't have to do everything in your 20s.
For sure. I just wonder what music she would have made if she had been able to be solo back. You know what I mean? It's the music and the artistry that I wonder about. Like, girl, what would you have been doing and talking about?
She was that bitch in the 80s, Ashley.
She clearly was. She was the Tina Turner, which, by the way, I'm going to be Tina Turner for Halloween one year very soon off of this documentary. All I need is my wig. Exactly. All I need is my wig. That's all I need. I'm gonna be posted. I'm gonna post on the recap and IG because I'm telling y'all, I'm doing Tina Turner. Okay,
love it. All right, part 4, the story. So at this point, she has immense success. She's in the Mad Max movie,
looking amazing.
Okay. But girl, after all of this success, people are still asking about Ike.
Yes. She thought the People magazine article was going to stop it. It didn't. So what did she do? She wrote a book. She had an autobiographer write her story, I, Tina. This book came in 1986. One of the things that she kept saying throughout this documentary, especially during this time, she kept talking about this ridiculously embarrassing story of my life. Like, she's embarrassed by this story, Ashley. Because again, I think she reached a point. I mean, I keep saying this, but she is Tina Turner. And for anybody who's younger who doesn't understand, that's like you saying Beyonce was once in an abusive relationship. Like, It just doesn't jive with the idea, I think, of who she became, even for herself. Like, I'm happy now. I'm living such a vibrant, full life. I can't imagine that was something that I went through. And can I say real quick too on this part, I love that Kurt Loder was a part of this because I had no idea. And I remember Kurt Loder so vividly from interviews and MTV and all this stuff, but I had no idea that he helped write her biography.
Yes.
I loved that.
Yes. And I also like it how he made the suggestion and he didn't think that it was gonna be him, but
he was like, could be me, could be anybody, could be me though.
But sometimes, to me, it's a lesson in if you have a suggestion, you might be the one to do it and not wait for someone else to do it.
But also, you need to be prepared to be the one to do it. Some people throw something out there and they're like, wait, no, not me. No, if you suggested this, be prepared for this blessing.
Very right, very true. But the book then turned into the movie starring the legendary Angela Bassett. Like, when I tell you she is Tina Turner and she was robbed for that Oscar for Best Actress.
Yes,
I will never get over it.
Yes,
never, ever.
Was one of the biggest snubs, in my opinion, in Oscars history.
Has to be, because legendary. Okay. But one of the things that I did enjoy in this commentary, someone mentioned that Tina's story was bigger than her at this point, right? And that's what made her an icon. That put her in that icon status because she became a beacon of hope for so many people. But Tina still was not having it at that Venice Film Festival.
That was uncomfortable.
Girl, I wrote in my notes, Angela's face at Venice Festival. She was like, no, I did not watch the film. Why would I want to watch it?
I don't want to keep getting reminded of this. And I was like, what is Angela thinking right now? How is she feeling? Because this is something that is catapulting your career. But one can fully understand, obviously. But something I found interesting is you can tell that artists are groomed, especially with interviews, because the way that Tina Turner speaks is the way that so many of those women in that era spoke in interviews. I'm like, it's just such a cadence in the way that they, say certain things. I don't know if anybody else picked up on that, but that's some media training right there.
But she also kept it 1,000.
She did. She was completely honest. But it's just like a curse. You can tell that there's a training that goes into the way that those artists in that era were groomed. That's my point. Not that she was not 100% still herself.
No. But I only say that because sometimes the media training, they teach you to either dodge or just not even
deflect.
Exactly. Not even give the true answer. She gave her true answer. She's like, I'm not watching it. This is it's like a curse.
Yeah.
And even
I wrote the book so I could forget about this, but it keeps coming up.
Exactly. And one of the memorable behind the scene interviews that we saw, when they asked her that question again, and she was like, I got a flash, and sister pulled out that fan and fanned herself. I was like, now that's a diva. Okay.
She said, so we're going to talk about this? Okay. Somebody get me a fan. I just had a flash. For real, like I can't imagine it. And I just feel like to be as poised as she was throughout all of this, she always still maintained her integrity. She never got upset. She never got angry. It had to be eating away at her every single time though. So my hats off to her for handling it so well, you know?
Exactly. And Oprah's quote was super important to me at this point. She said, if you don't address wounds of your past, you will always bleed.
Yeah.
And then the film, the way it was arranged, I thought was beautifully done because it talks about her relationship with her mother.
Yeah.
Which was ugly.
Take notes, Lee Daniels. This is how you structure a story. I'm just saying. That's no shade, but I'm just saying.
Take my breath like once an episode. I swear. Goodness gracious, Ashley. Oh my gosh. So Tina pretty much said that her mom doesn't like her, Ashley, and that her mom seems to like her success, but not actually her.
Oh my goodness. Hurt me deeply.
And even that interview with her mom was kind of gross to me when the guy was like, what are you most proud of? And all she could talk about was her climbing a ladder. And I guess she's trying to point out that she was fearless. What did you think about that?
She sounded like a stranger who was finding something, grasping at straws to find something to say. I watched this with my mom. My mom was like, she doesn't know her at all. Because your mother should have an anecdote or two.
Had to. But the part where they said like, oh, were you there to help her? She's like, oh no, she did that by herself. Like, so that part was true.
Yeah, because sis, you didn't give her a choice. You weren't there.
That part.
Yeah. But it's just like, what had her mother gone through? That's the one thing that I wish I knew. And I don't know if Tina even knows. What did her mother go through that made her the way that she was towards her own children? You know what I mean?
Yes.
Had to have been something. Not that I am giving her leeway in this behavior, but had to be something.
Had to be something. But this is the part where I got emotional at multiple points in this documentary. One, the first time, and I didn't highlight it, but I'll highlight it here. When she performed in Rio in front of 186,000 people, that goes back to what I was trying to say. She knew exactly what she wanted, and the fact that she was able to do it, was phenomenal.
Yes. Oh, I'm getting chills just hearing it again.
And then the other part that I got emotional is when she talked about how she had never received love.
Yes. And lived her whole life. Never had
a genuine love affair in her life. She said, I survived. She's like, not from my mother, not from my father. And the fact that she just said, I just survived. That was heartbreaking.
Yeah. The quote that I had written down from this section was, I want a man without shame.
Girl.
I will receive it when I have earned it.
But see, that part kind of made me feel sad too, because it's like, what does earn mean?
It is sad. It is sad to think that you feel like you have to do something more to be worthy of a man's love. That's why I quoted it, because it it broke my heart. Like, Tina, you have always been enough. You've been more than
always
enough. More
from
than
day
enough.
one, period.
Yeah.
And so part 5, love.
Amen, Jesus.
I do feel like I felt like this wasn't even long enough for my liking, because I don't know. It makes me smile though. So
it does, especially how they started it. I want a strong man to wear the trousers and not dominate me, and that's fair.
And that's fair, sis. And they exist.
Yes,
I know,
sis.
like
yes,
they
sis.
exist, sis. Okay. But then we cut to Erwin, her husband. He talked about the first time they met. They met at the airport. There's a major age gap between the two of them. Okay.
Do your thing.
She's like, they were celebrating her 50th birthday and he's in his 30s. Okay. One of the things that blew my mind was like, she obviously was completely enamored by him, but she's like, when you come to LA, I want you to make love to me. I was like,
yes. Now that is my kind of woman. The face that she made in the interview, she was like, oh, I can't believe I said that. Listen, I loved it. She was like, listen, I'm single. I didn't have no man. I like this man and I wanted him to know.
Well, you can get it if you want it.
Yes. When you come to LA, I want you to make love to me. Okay. Now I'm sure people these days would not even say it that elegantly.
No, because we've gotten away from that even in our music. Okay. So
oh yes.
When she was talking about eat the booty like groceries, I was like, we've crossed a mark here.
Girl.
Like I don't think.
and if I ever meet Janae, we're gonna have a conversation, because I saw an interview and she put that out there, knowing good and well that ain't even something she like herself. So
really?
Janae, yes, she did an interview. She do not. So it's like, sis, how you gonna put this out here in the public sphere? Because it sounded good. It sounded good, and exactly. And people was like, oh, that was like the line of like that summer. Remember? That song was hot.
I remember very well.
God.
Basically, we get a tour of their gorgeous Switzerland home. Like, even when you Google Tina Turner, they call her American Swiss singer.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. And they were together for a very long time before they got married, Ashley.
27 years, child.
27 a long years. Time. I will say, I feel like I wanted him to gush over her a little bit more, but I think language is a barrier for him just a little bit.
Yeah.
But you could definitely see the love, you know.
When he talked about it's like an electric charge, and even hours after I've been away from her, I still feel it. Like, I felt that. It was like we've reached this level of a mature love, but we still have such a deep connection with each other. So I thought it was beautiful.
Yes. And I loved how they ended the documentary with Tina getting ready to see a Broadway musical named after her. Iconic.
Now you talk about getting emotional. This got me. The end got me.
Yes. Go ahead and elaborate. What other part?
So it was so satisfying to go back to my first statement about my grade, just to see this legendary artist who's respected, loved, appreciated, getting recognized while she's alive. And then that bittersweetness of the fact that this is her final act of her career and she knows it. Like, it was just so moving. It gave me chills. I think about how many of my favorite artists never made it to this point in their careers.
Oh, yeah.
And it was, again, satisfying, bittersweet. Whitney's the one for me.
Yes.
Bittersweet, beautiful. I want her to feel the love in that moment, because she is somebody that, again, my appreciation just deepened so much watching this.
Absolutely.
And then they ended it on my favorite song, like I said, the best. So I just had all the feels, Delora. I had all the feelings in my body.
So overall, I absolutely love this documentary. Here's my issue with this documentary, okay? My issue is they talk so much about how Ike was a shadow to her life, but I felt like we still ended up talking about Ike substantially, because even in this final act, they talked about his death and her feelings towards him. One of the things that I thought was interesting was she can't even tell you whether or not it was a good thing that they met or not. She said, I don't know.
Yeah. The only good thing I'm sure is her son, her child, at least that they made together. But I think the way that I took it, and I totally understand that, Delora, because again, I feel some type of way now, even referencing some of their hits as any of my favorites of hers, because it's like I want to pay respect to the fact that you kind of want to distance
where's
from
the money
that.
going to? Because if the money's going to the kids now, maybe I feel a little bit better listening to some old stuff, but she doesn't have any connection to that anymore.
That would be whatever his estate is, and if he actually still managed to, because who knows if he sold off any of the rights of that while he was still alive. But I will say that the only solace I took to that point is that she spoke of forgiveness. And I think that she's saying basically that she understands why they will always be intersecting and interlinked and interlocked. And she had to make peace with that in order to move forward and be able to live her best life. So that's the only solace that I could take from him having to be such a big part of her story.
Well said. She was such a trailblazer. Her resiliency is just iconic, and the hard work. The hard work, the fact that in the midst of her success, she was still doing stadiums and small clubs. Like, this woman was working, okay?
You see where the Beyoncés and some of the artists today who everybody says, oh my God, their work ethic, like that was the norm. That was the norm. The norm of our living legends.
It was. And that was my other caveat. I'm glad that you put that in there too. I wish there was a section of appreciation of Tina by her peers. Okay, so I wish there was like a Mick Jagger or Rob Stewart or even a Quincy Jones to say something. And then I wish there was also younger artists. So I'm talking like a Janet or a Madonna or a Gaga or a Beyonce.
I talked about her influence.
Yeah, I really wish there was a section that talked an appreciation section, but also, like you mentioned, talk about her influence in their artistry as well.
Maybe that can be some type of subsequent, again, I think this was a love letter to Tina herself.
Absolutely. Yes.
So in that regard, I completely respect it as the full body of work that they gave us. I hope that the Beyoncés and those who do watch this are like, hey, I think we should do a follow-up and we talk about how we feel about Tina and XYZ. I think that would be a beautiful addition to this story for sure.
But like you mentioned, that's very true, because the interviews they had, the pictures they had, phenomenal. I've never seen them before. I'm sure no one's ever seen them before, but any final thoughts for you, Ashley?
I'm glad we recapped this, Delora.
Yay,
our first documentary. I really, really enjoyed this so much. And I hope that more stories like this get to be made about people who were phenomenal, because you guys deserve to be recognized and appreciated while you're still around. Absolutely. You know, let's not just make these 20, 30 years after people have passed away. So I loved it. Great job.
Thank you. Excellent job. I'm so glad she had her fingers in it too. She's a producer as well. So
yes, Tina. All right.
With that, it's time for hidden gems.
All right. Ready to move on. So Delora, you go ahead and go first and hit us with your hidden gems this week.
All right. So my hidden gems this week are podcasts. Okay. So my first hidden gem is Brown Ambition podcast. I love this podcast so much. I've been listening to them for a very long time. If you love financial literacy or, personal finance, this is a podcast for you. Okay. It's hosted by Mandy Woodruff and Tiffany Aliche. Again, they talk about personal finance. Tiffany Aliche is known as the Budgetnista. She has a new book coming out, Get Good with Money. Really excited about that. But the reason why I'm highlighting Brown Ambition is because I'm also highlighting another podcast this week. And it is previously one of my hidden gems. However, I am highlighting a specific episode This is The Suga, hosted by Tika Sumpter and Ty Randolph. Budgetnista was featured in the episode titled Getting Good with Money with Tiffany the Budgetnista Aliche. It was such a fantastic episode, just talking about the 10 steps in her book. And she's a really great storyteller, Tiffany. And I love the energy of the host of The Sugar. So check that out on your favorite podcast platforms. What about you, Ashley? What are
Very nice. Well, I just have one this week. Man, this show is crazy, but I'm really enjoying it. It's called Made for Love. It's on HBO MAX. Really shows kind of the scary side of future potential technology. It's starring Kristen Melody, who was inevitably the mom on How I Met Your Mother. So this is her first real leading role in a series that I've seen anyway. Ray Romano plays her father in probably his strangest role yet. And basically,
there's a sex doll, isn't there?
There is a sex doll, girl. So basically the premise is Kristen is a wife who her husband is a billionaire tech guy, and she realizes that he wants to implant a chip in her brain and merge their minds. So she flees and goes to her father's house, played by Ray Romano. I've only watched episode 5. I cannot wait to watch episode 6. I heard there was supposedly going to be 10 episodes, but HBO Max has been dropping weekly on Thursday, so we'll see. But it's fascinating. It's terrifying. Our girl Haley Fitzgerald from The Undoing is also in it. So again, guys, check out that recap. She's great as always. And I'm so curious to see how this kind of wraps up in season 1. I guess I should call it sci-fi because it's technology, but it's also very realistic in the era we live in now, where I feel like somebody is really working on some shit like this.
Is it funny?
So it's funny, but it's like kooky funny. You know what I mean? Like it's strange. There's a lot of strange things going on. So it's the premise. It's everything. If you guys like something that's a little different, a little bit out there, check this show out and let us know what you think. Again, that's Made for Love on HBO Max. So that is my hidden gem for this week, Delora.
All right. Thank you, Ashley.
Of course. Oh, my goodness. So we're about to be at episode 25 next week, guys.
Really?
Episode 25.
Exciting.
I do not know what we're recapping yet, but we will definitely, as always, let you guys know on social.
A lot of good stuff is coming out.
Yeah, there's some things on the horizon. So check us out at Recapping Podcast on all your favorite, platforms on social media, particularly Instagram, to see what we'll be doing next. Delora, anything else you want to say or share with our listeners before we get out of here?
Nope. Love you, girl.
Love you too, guys. As always, be blessed. Take care. Love you. Bye.